The wind on dockside 7 cut like blades. She pulled her thin scarf tighter around her neck, but it was no use. The cold still bit through her skin. Her hands were blue, her lips trembled. And her daughter, a small girl with pale gray skin and large, tired eyes, leaned into her, too weak to walk on her own. They had been wandering the human station for 2 days. Her name was Laura, and she had begged at every door in the lower sector. She had offered to clean, to cook, to carry metal, to wash floors, but no one wanted her. Not an alien, not someone like her. Try somewhere else, they said. Not hiring. No one's allowed to bring beggars here. Get off my dock. One man threw a can at her. Another laughed when her daughter coughed and nearly fell. Still, she didn't give up. She had to find work, food, anything. Her daughter hadn't eaten in a day and a half, and now her little body was shaking. She stopped in front of one. Last building, a repair shop. The sign above it buzzed, old and broken. But the lights inside were still on. The name on the rusted metal read, Harris Mechanics. No credit, no complaints. She hesitated, then knocked. Nothing. She knocked again, harder this time. Her hand stung from the cold. Finally, the door opened halfway. A man stood there, tall, broad shoulders, worn clothes, a dark beard with a scar running through one side of his jaw. His eyes looked tired, not angry, not kind, just tired. He stared at her. Then his eyes fell to the child in her arms. Laura swallowed. Her throat was dry. Her voice came out rough and low. "I'm looking for work," she said. "Anything. I can clean, I can lift. I just need something, please." He didn't answer. His eyes just stayed on the child. Laura hesitated. She lowered her eyes. Her hands shook harder. She hated what she was about to say, but this was the last door, double quotes, if. "If nothing else," she whispered, "I can offer, my body." The silence that followed was heavy. The man stepped back for a second. She thought he was going to slam the door like the others, but instead, he said 4 words, low, steady, final. "Put your coat back on." I don't have put it back on," he repeated, "and bring the kid inside." He turned and walked in, leaving the door open. Laura stood there for a second, stunned. Then she hurried forward, carrying her daughter with weak arms. The workshop was warm. Faint heat from the machinery gave life to the air. The smell of metal and oil filled her nose. But it was better than the cold. The man moved behind a small counter and brought out a metal box. He pressed a button. Steam rose. Inside was a simple food pack, rehydrated noodles. He handed it to her without a word. Her hands trembled as she took it. The girl in her arms opened her mouth slowly, weakly, and Laura fed her 1 bite at a time. "Why? ... Laura whispered, "Why are you helping?" The man didn't answer. He just went back to his bench and picked up a broken servo arm, fixing it with quiet focus. Laura tried again. "I can still work. I'll clean. You don't need to offer." "Anything right now?" he said, still not looking up. "Just feed her, then get some sleep." "There's nowhere to sleep," she said softly. He nodded toward a side room. Back room has an old cot and a heater. It's not much, but better than outside. Laura didn't move at first. She just stared at him. Who was this man? Everyone else had laughed at her, mocked her, told her to sell herself. He was the first who didn't even look at her that way. She rose slowly and carried her daughter into the room. It was small, spare walls, a metal cot, but it was warm. She laid the girl down. The child sighed in relief, her color already looking. Better Laura sat beside her, wrapping them both in the blanket that was folded at the end of the cot. She should have felt safe, but she didn't, because now a new fear crept in, not of hunger, but of the unknown. Who was this man? Why did he help? And why... Did he look like he'd lost everything too? She closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come, only silence. Outside the repair shop, shadows moved in the cold, and someone, somewhere, had seen her enter. Laura woke to the soft hum of machinery. Her daughter was still asleep, breathing easier now. The warmth in the room felt strange, like a lie. Her body wasn't used to comfort anymore. Her mind told her not to trust it. She stepped out quietly. From the back room, pulling the blanket tight around her shoulders, the human man, the one who hadn't taken advantage of her, the one who didn't ask questions, was already working. Eyes. Sparks danced as he welded something on the floor. His hands moved like he'd done this 1,000 times. But his face looked tired, distant. He didn't look up when she entered. Laura cleared her throat gently. "Thank you for letting us stay." Didn't stop working. She okay? Better, ate everything, slept warm for the first time in I don't remember how long. He just nodded. Silence followed. Heavy silence, not uncomfortable, but strange. Laura stood there, unsure. She wanted to say more, offer something, do anything, to show she wasn't just another beggar. But what could she give that didn't sound like a trade? "I can clean," she said finally. "Your place is dusty. I noticed the back corner is full of rusting parts." He set the tool down, wiping his hands with a cloth. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," she replied, "but it helps me feel less helpless." That made him pause. His eyes lifted to hers, sharp and curious. "You're not helpless," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "You don't even know my name." He looked back to his tools. "You haven't asked mine either." She gave a small smile. "Fair." Then, after a moment, "I'm Lyra. My daughter's name is Thel." He muttered under his breath while tightening a bolt. "Ooh, you gave her a warrior's name." Lyra blinked. "You know that?" He shrugged. "I know a lot of things." She stepped closer, cautiously. "Why are you here then?" "The station. ... It's the edge of nothing. No ships pass through anymore. No business. No real reason to stay." "Why are you here, running a repair shop with no customers?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stood, walked to a shelf, and handed her a small box. Inside were cleaning tools, rags, a tiny plasma duster. "If it helps you feel stronger," he said, "start with the front desk." Laura accepted the box with quiet surprise. She hadn't expected him to say yes. She moved to the counter and began cleaning, careful and focused. It wasn't much, but it was something. For once she was doing something useful. As she wiped away layers of dust, she glanced at the wall above the counter. There were old photos pinned there, faded, torn edges. One showed a group of soldiers in armor, human military, all standing, proud beside a battle cruiser, and in the back row, partly hidden him. Same scar on his jaw, same eyes. She stepped closer, heart pounding. "This is you," she whispered. He didn't look up. "That was a long time ago. We're in the war," she said, her voice quieter now. "The human merit conflict. That ship, I've seen it in records." He said nothing. "You were on the front lines. You were one of the flame line survivors. I thought they all died." His voice dropped. "Some of us wished we had." Laura turned to face him fully. "Then why are you helping me?" "I'm Merrick-born." Finally looked up, but there was no hate in his eyes. "You're not holding a weapon," he said. "You're holding a child?" Laura's throat tightened. She wanted to say something more. "Thank you. I'm sorry." Something but the word stayed trapped. Suddenly, a loud knock slammed against the front door. Both of them froze. 3 more. Knocks followed, rough, angry, then a voice. "You got a Merrick in there, human?" Laura gasped. Her hands trembled again. Someone had seen her come inside. Word had spread. The man, silent until now, stepped forward, calm and controlled. He grabbed a metal rod from beside the door. "She stays here," he said to the voice outside. Another voice responded. "Then you'll both answer to the station enforcers. That thing doesn't belong here." He didn't flinch. "Neither do I, but here I am." Laura stepped back, shielding her daughter's room with her body. "You don't have to protect us," she whispered. The man looked at her for a long second, then replied, quiet and strong, "You offered your body. That was survival. But what you need is a place where you're not afraid. So stay behind me And don't open that door unless I don't come back. Lura's heart pounded as he walked toward the entrance. Who was this human, and why? ... Was he risking himself for a stranger? The man stood at the door like a wall. Lura couldn't see his face, but his voice stayed calm as he spoke to the angry strangers outside. She heard the muffled shouts, the threats, the word alien used like poison, but he didn't back down. After a few tense minutes, the voices faded. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, and silence returned. He didn't say anything when he came back inside. Just set the metal rod against the wall, wiped his hands, and sat down like it was any other day. Lura watched him from the shadows, her heart still racing. Who was this man? Why didn't he flinch when they threatened him? Why did the men outside leave so easily? Later that evening, Lura stepped out of the back room while her daughter slept. The man was working again, deep in focus, welding sparks lighting the room. I want to thank you, she said softly. He didn't stop working. Don't. I need to know your name. He hesitated just for a second, then said, doesn't matter. It does to me. He didn't respond. She stood there, frustrated and curious. The more he hid, the more she wanted to understand. The next day, while cleaning near the supply shelves, she noticed a drawer left half open. Inside were worn ID tags. Military ones. Burned at the edges, scratched by age, but one of them had a name etched in bold lettering. Commander Thane H. Rial. Lura froze. She knew that name. Everyone in her homeworld knew it. Every child was told stories of the human warrior who broke their lines at the Battle of Dareth 7, the one who was feared more than any weapon, the one they said had burned entire escape ships to stop the war. Her people called him the Butcher of the Skyline. Her hands trembled as she pulled the tag from the drawer. It was him. It was him. She stared at the tag for a long time, her fingers cold. She wanted to drop it, run, scream. Instead, she walked back to him, holding it out and shaking hands. This is you. He looked up, saw the tag, and said nothing. You're Thane Rial. Still no reply. You were supposed to be dead. He took the tag from her hand gently, then walked over to the furnace and dropped it in. It hissed metal meeting fire and vanished in the smoke. I died a long time ago, he said. Laura's mouth went dry. You killed so many of us. My people. I followed orders, he said, voice flat. And now you're hiding on a junk station, fixing machines no one uses? He looked at her finally, directly. I'm not hiding, he said. I'm healing. Lura didn't know what to say. You think I don't remember their faces? He added. You think I sleep easy? Every time I shut my eyes, I see the ones I couldn't save. Human or Merrick doesn't matter anymore. They all screamed the same way when the ships went down. His words weren't proud. They weren't angry or broken. Lura sat down, stunned. Her legs couldn't carry the weight of the truth. I hated you, she whispered. We all did. My brother. ... He died in that war. I know, he said. I remember the name on his pod. He shielded a group of civilians. He died a warrior. Her eyes widened. You remember his name? I remember every name. I keep a list in my head. It's the only weight I carry now. Silence filled the shop. Then a soft cough came from the back room. Lura stood, shaking off the heaviness, and rushed to her daughter. The child was burning with fever. Her skin was hot, her lips dry. She tried to speak but couldn't form words. Lura panicked. She's worse. She's not breathing right. The man was already beside her. Clear the table, he ordered. Lura did, and he carried the girl over. From a hidden wall panel, he opened a case inside were advanced medical tools. Cleaner than anything on the station. Why do you have this? Lura asked, shocked. He didn't answer. He just got to work. He applied a scanner to Thel's chest, set up a microdrip system, and fed a nutrient mist into her lungs. His hands didn't shake. His eyes never left her face. Lura stood by, helpless, watching. Minutes passed. Then the child's breathing slowed. Her color returned. "She'll sleep now," he said. "She's safe." Laura couldn't speak. He turned. "To her next time, don't try to leave. I built this place to keep things running." "I didn't know it'd keep someone alive." Laura swallowed. Her voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" "Why us?" He looked toward the child. "Because maybe. If I help one life, I'll sleep one night." She stared at him, the man her people. Once Fied was now kneeling beside her daughter, guarding her like a silent shield, and in that moment, Laura felt something worse than fear. Hope. The station's nights were always cold, but this night, something inside Laura felt colder. She stood at the edge of the back room watching her daughter sleep peacefully on the cot. The fever was gone. Her skin looked calm. Breathing was steady. All thanks to him, the man she once thought was a monster. Thane Rial, the name whispered in fear across war zones. Now repairing old junk and saving a sick child with steady hands. But Laura couldn't stay. She couldn't accept this quiet safety. It didn't feel real, didn't feel right. He had killed too many. Her people had lost too much. No matter how kind he acted now, the past still clung to him like smoke to fire. She packed quietly. Just the few pieces of clothing she had. Her daughter's blanket. The half-empty food pack from yesterday. She looked around the room once more. Simple walls. A rusted lamp. A warmth that came not from metal, but from mercy. Still, her hands didn't stop moving. She bent down, wrapped her daughter gently, and whispered in her ear, "We're leaving. Quiet now. Just us." Thel stirred but didn't resist. She was still weak, but awake enough to hold on. Laura opened the door and peeked outside. The shop was dark. No lights. She could hear the faint clicking of a fan and the soft hum of a distant welding torch. He was still working in the far end. Perfect. She stepped out slowly, holding her daughter close. Her feet barely made a sound. No alarms, no callouts. Just the silence of someone too used to hiding. They reached the main door. Her hand touched the metal panel, but before she could open it, Thel's body went limp. Her arms buckled. She gasped. The girl's head dropped to the side. Her breathing was shallow. Too shallow. Thel. Panic exploded through her chest. Her knees hit the floor. The door behind her slammed open. He was there, not with anger. Not with surprise, but with urgency. He moved faster than her eyes could follow, dropped beside them, scooped the child from her arms, and carried her back inside without a word. Laura followed, stumbling, tears already streaking her face. Inside, the man laid Thel on the heated cot and reattached the medical line. He pressed 2 fingers gently under her jaw, then checked her pulse at the wrist. "It's her blood sugar," he said calmly. "Her body used too much energy healing. Tried to move her too soon." Laura couldn't breathe. "I didn't know, I thought. Thought we were better off away from here." He didn't look at her. "You almost killed her. It hit like a blade." She stepped back as if slapped. "I didn't mean." "I know." His voice was lower. Now, not angry, just exhausted. She needs at least 2 more days of rest. Warmth, food, medical support. You can't give her that out there. Laura's voice shook. "I didn't want to take advantage of you. You didn't." She sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands. "I don't know how to live in kindness anymore." The man sat beside the cot, eyes never leaving the little girl's face. "You don't have to trust me. Just stay until she's strong." Laura raised her eyes. "And then what?" He leaned back. For the first time, he looked unsure. "Then, you decide." She nodded slowly, quietly. "Okay?" That night, Laura didn't sleep. She sat by her daughter's side. Listening to the soft breathing, she glanced at the man asleep in a chair beside the door. Arms folded, weapons still close. He didn't ask her to stay. He didn't ask for payment. He just protected the next morning. As the shop stirred to life, a supply drone buzzed outside the door. Laura opened it to find a small crate with medical patches, protein supplements, and water packs. All tagged with a military code. She turned to the man. You still have access to old supply lines? He didn't answer, but in her heart, the answer was clear. Thane Rial wasn't hiding. He was still watching the war from the shadows, still. Helping in ways no one else saw. And somehow, she and her daughter had become part of his mission. The morning was silent. Lura wiped the counter with careful hands. Thel was still sleeping, her skin finally full of color, her breath steady. The girl had even smiled once before drifting off again. It was the first time in weeks Lura had seen. That smile. Thane Rial, the man her people feared, was sitting near the main bench, rebuilding a busted grav welder. I hadn't spoken much today, but he had nodded when she offered to help clean the storage racks. He didn't say no, didn't say anything. That was how he was. He gave space, but never left anyone unguarded, as Lura sorted through shelves of spare. That's in bent metal. Rods. She came across a wall panel that seemed out of place. It was cleaner than the rest. No dust, no rust. The bolts were newer. Something about it felt wrong. She reached out, pressed a hand against the surface, and tapped. Hollow, curious now, she searched the nearby drawer. A small key card lay inside, one she hadn't seen before. It had a blue stripe and no label. She hesitated. She shouldn't go snooping. Oh, this wasn't her place. But something about the silence around this room called to her. Not danger, but memory. She slid the card across a small hidden reader near the panel. With a soft click, the wall shifted and slid open, revealing a narrow hallway. Cold air rushed past her. She stepped inside. The hallway led to a sealed room, faintly lit by a blue overhead glow. Inside, metal cases lined the walls. Everything was organized, clean, professional. This wasn't a junk shop storage room. It was military. On the far wall hung a long coat, black, heavy, trimmed in silver. Beside it, a worn command helmet, and above them, mounted on the wall, a holly frame flickered to life as she stepped in. Her breath caught in her throat. Dozens of faces rotated across the screen, humans and Merrick alike. Young, old, soldiers, civilians. Below each face was a name and a date. Most were labeled fallen. Others said saved. Her brother's name was there, and next to his name the words Shielded Escape Unit. 10 survivors. Confirmed. She covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. He had remembered. He had recorded it. He had honored the dead, even the ones his side once called the enemy. She turned and saw something else. A small box on a table. Inside were children's drawings, crude sketches of ships, stars, and a man with a long scar on his jaw. Standing beside children, on the back of one drawing, a messy signature. Thank you, Mr. Rial. Lua felt her knees weaken. She sat down on the bench beside the table. This wasn't just a room. This was his memory, his grief, his truth. He hadn't run from war. He had carried it with him. It's buried under bolts and wires, beneath machines and silence. You weren't supposed to see this. His voice was low, steady, but it made her jump. Thane stood at the entrance. He didn't look angry, just tired. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean to. It's fine. He stepped inside slowly, his boots soft against the floor. This is where I remember them, he said. Not in parades, not in medals. Just here, names, faces, stories. Lura stood. Her hands trembled. You saved more than they ever. Told us he nodded once. But I still destroyed too much. Why didn't you clear your name? He looked up at the glowing faces. Because the galaxy needs monsters to hate. It's easier that way. Let them believe I vanished. She took a breath. My people told stories about you. Terrible stories. But now, I'm not sure if they were trying to protect us or keep us from learning the truth. He met her eyes. Truth doesn't matter unless someone decides to carry it. She stepped closer. Then let me carry some of it. He frowned. Why? Because you didn't have to save my daughter. Or protect me. Or keep these faces alive. You did it anyway. She reached out, placed her hand gently on his arm. You gave us more than shelter. You Gave us something my people said didn't exist in humans, mercy. He didn't move. Didn't speak. But for the first time, she saw something shift in his eyes. Not anger, not pain. Relief, and perhaps just for a moment, forgiveness. The shop was too quiet. Laura felt it the moment she stepped out of the hidden room. The hum of machinery had stopped.
Ow.
The fan above the repair bench wasn't spinning. Even the usual beeps from the old console were gone. Thane stood in the center of the room, completely still, holding a scanner in one hand. The display blinked red. "What's wrong?" Laura asked. He didn't turn. Motion sensors tripped on the south corridor. Too many footsteps. Too quiet. "They're not delivery drones." She stepped beside him. "Who is it?" Thane looked at, her eyes colder than usual. "Someone who doesn't want you or your daughter here." Before she could reply, a sharp sound echoed through the door. Bang. Then another. Thel peeked out from behind the curtain, clutching her blanket. Laura rushed to her and held her close. Outside, a voice called out, "Thane Rial, we know she's in there. You've broken neutrality. Come out now." Another voice added, "You're sheltering a Merrick female and her offspring. That's a violation of Treaty Rule 9. Thane didn't answer. He moved toward the door and flicked a small switch. Metal shutters sealed across the windows. Lights dimmed. The shop changed, no longer just a quiet repair zone, but something closer to a bunker. Leora watched him in disbelief.
Ow.
"You were ready for this?" "I always am," he said. Then he turned to her. "Take Thel and go to the hidden room. Lock it from the inside." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you out here alone." He crouched down to her level. His voice was low, steady. "This isn't about you. This is about what they're afraid of. People like me doing what's right instead of what's allowed." Laura held his gaze. And what about me? What if they break in?" He looked toward the hallway. "They won't." He moved to the console and began typing something rapidly. On the screen, camera feeds appeared. A dozen armored figures surrounded the shop, armed with stun rifles and breach packs. Their uniforms were a patchwork, part security, part scavenger militia. "They're not official," Thane said. "Which means they're hired." "Hired by who?" He paused, then said, "Someone who profits when people like you disappear." Laura clenched her fists. "Then let's make sure they don't." Thel tugged her sleeve. "Mama, I'm not scared if he's here." The girl's voice, small, soft, made Thane freeze for half a second. Then he stood, turned, and smiled. "Just barely." "Good," he said. "Then let's hold the line." The first explosion hit the outer door. The metal shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Thane raised a reinforced barrier behind the main gate. Old tech, tough metal, enough to buy them time. He handed Laura a small device. "This unlocks the back hatch. If they get through, you take her and run." "You." He looked at her like the question didn't need an answer. Laura stepped closer. "I'm not going. Not unless you do." Before he could argue, another blast hit the door. This time, a crack formed. Laura turned to her daughter and knelt. "Thel, listen to me. Stay quiet. Stay strong. You're going to see the stars again. I promise." The child nodded, then crawled into the hidden space Thane had once used for storage. Laura sealed her in. Outside, the final breach charge was set. Thane stepped forward. Weapon drawn, a pulse hammer, old and heavy, like him. He planted his feet wide. Eyes locked forward as the door burst open. Smoke filled the room. Figures rushed in, but they didn't find a helpless alien woman. They found Thane Rial, standing in the smoke, unshaken. His first shot dropped 2 men before they even raised their rifles. Laura grabbed a wrench from the counter and struck a third soldier who rushed toward the rear. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She fought. The shop lit up with sparks, smoke, and shouting. Then silence. Minutes passed when the smoke cleared. Only 2 people were left standing. Thane bruised but breathing, his shirt torn in one arm. Bleeding, and Laura standing beside him, panting, weapon in hand. Blood on her clothes that wasn't hers. They looked at each other. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. They had survived, together. The silence after the fight was heavier than the noise during it. Sparks still crackled from broken wires. The shop smelled of metal, ash, and scorched plastic. Thane leaned against the wall, one hand pressed to the bleeding cut on his arm. His other hand still gripped the pulse hammer, though his fingers shook now. Lura stood nearby, her chest rising and falling. Eyes locked on the wrecked doorway where the intruders had come. Her hands were scraped, her side ached where she'd been slammed against a crate. But she hadn't backed down. Neither had he. Thel crawled out from the hidden storage space, blinking at the smoke in the air. "Mama?" she whispered. Lura turned quickly, her face softening. "It's okay, baby. We're okay." The little girl looked around at the damage, then at Thane. "You didn't let them take us." Thane didn't answer. Lura helped him once. Lura helped him to the chair near the bench. "You need to sit. You're losing too much blood." "I've had worse," he muttered. She looked at him. "Maybe, but not while protecting people who once feared you." He chuckled dryly. "I've done worse things too." She knelt in front of him, gently pulling his hand away from the wound. "No," she said. "You've done enough." She cleaned the gash with a soft cloth, then wrapped it tightly. Her hands were careful, but her eyes were focused, not on the wound, but on the man. "Back then," she said slowly, "I offered you my body." His jaw clenched slightly. "You were starving." "I was desperate," she said. "And I was wrong." He looked down. "You thought I was like the others." She nodded. "Yes, but you weren't. You're not." She finished the bandage and stood. "So now I offer you something else. It's not out of fear. That is payment." She stepped closer. "I offer my loyalty, my strength, my name, not as a debt, but as a partner." Thane looked up, stunned. "Why would you? Because you didn't just save us," she said. "You showed me that kindness doesn't come with conditions. You gave a child warmth without asking for her mother's pride. And when they came for us, you stood like a wall." Her voice softened. "So now, let me stand beside you." Thel walked over and grabbed Thane's hand. With her small fingers, "Can I call you something?" He blinked. "What?" She smiled shyly. "Papa." Thane froze. Of all the words thrown at him over the years, killer, butcher, monster, this one broke him. He lowered his head. His voice was rough when he answered, "If that's what you want." Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. "What we want." Outside the shop, cleanup drones had started to arrive. The broken wall would be rebuilt. The station security would ask questions, but none of that mattered now. Laura looked at the damaged shop, the shattered door, the broken signs. Then she looked at him. "We can leave this place." He shook his head. "I can't. Too many people depend on what I send from here. Supplies, signals, safety." She nodded. "Then let's stay, but not as ghosts, not as survivors." "As something stronger?" He raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" She smiled. "Family." A week later, the shop had new walls, stronger ones. The shutters now had manual locks. Thel ran through the aisles, her laughter echoing against the metal. She carried a small spanner too big for her hands. Pretending to fix the old bots, Lura worked behind the counter, organizing requests from nearby settlements. Thane stood at the repair bench, welding a drone wing with precision. The world hadn't changed. The war stories hadn't vanished. The galaxy still whispered lies. But inside that little shop, something stronger had grown. Not fear, not duty, but humanity. Even in the heart of cold space, it had taken root.